please. Yeah, so I'm Ben Arca, a Bitcoin hobbyist. Quite early on, I saw that there needed to be a maker-hacker community nurtured a little bit more in the Bitcoin space. Bitcoin is obviously very keen on running their own software, running their own hardware like Raspberry Pis, but there wasn't many people playing around with IoT-type devices. And if we're going to move into a future world where we have lots of these little devices communicating with each other, it's very important that the users have some control over those devices, and it's based on free and open source software, and etc. So I started off just hacking around and playing around, making a candy machine and points of sale and those sorts of things, and an ATM and a vending machine. And then I kept stumbling across some of these software issues in that if I made a point of sale, it would have to be an LND point of sale, and then I'd have to change it and make a C Lightning version of that, or an Eclair version, or an OpenNode version. So it seemed to make sense quite early on, and it seemed to be quite obvious that I needed some sort of middleware with an API which I could plug into, and then it wouldn't matter what that middleware was funded with. So it'd be a connector, so you could plug an LND in, or a C Lightning, or any node implementation, and then I would just have the same API, and I could just use that rather than redoing the same work every single time in all of my projects. With the hardware projects I was making, we also managed to get them out in the wild. So there's this very iconic bar which existed in Berlin called Room 77, and my point of sale was used there. And again, we got some real world feedback that the transactions were all going into LND, but it was quite hard to differentiate transactions, like which transactions were for beer, which transactions were from the bar, and the bar owner, although he's a hardcore cypherpunk, Bitcoiner, very quietly said to me, "Ben, I need to be able to, export these transactions into QuickBooks so I can pay my taxes." So there also needed to be some sort of account system where you could easily differentiate different payments as well. So there's another kind of thing which started me to think, okay, this software kind of needs to exist. The other problem was, I made an ATM, and in order for that ATM to work, it had to be able to spend funds. So it'd have to have my admin macaroon or my admin key if I'm using something like OpenNode. And none of those solutions at that time really had a way of splitting up my funds. LND had LND Hub, but it was still quite technical for a lot of people, and a little bit too hard maybe. So that we also just needed an account system. So I could have £100 in a wallet, and the ATM has access to that. When it runs out, I get some little, alert, and then I can refill the wallet if I want to refill the wallet. So there are all these kind of building the hardware and then getting that out in the real world. I got all this feedback, which then kind of made me slowly come up with this idea of LNbits. The other thing I was quite keen on as well, quite early on, I made little software projects like an LNURL FOSS or something, and then people would say, well, can you free and open source? And it was kind of messy on the back end. And then also, every time I made one of these projects, I was reusing my code, and I was very aware that everybody else was making software projects, and they were building connectors going to these nodes as well. So again, it made sense that they could just have something in their stack which could be used, and they could just concentrate on the fun bit, which is making some weird, goofy extension and giving some extra functionality to Lightning invoices and so on. So this is LNbits, free and open source Lightning account system with extensions. That's the kind of story of where it came from. So it very much came from insight from having stuff out in the real world, which is why I'm extremely excited about El Salvador, because now we have all this real world use and real world feedback. It's no longer just, a one sleazy bar in Berlin. It's like a whole country giving us real world feedback as well. We currently have 2 implementations of LNbits. Recently, in the past month, we've refactored LNbits to use a different framework in the back end for the API, because our old framework we used had some scaling issues. And also Firtjaf, who works on the project as well, he's come up with a Go version as well, which I'm going to talk a little bit about in a little while, which we call Infinity. So for some reason we're giving it these goofy names, Legend and Infinity, and I did say to Firtjaf what we're going to call the next one, like Black Ops or something, so because it sounds a bit gamey. But anyway, so the Legend version of LNbits, for those who are interested, for the developers, because we're on a developer track after all, it's a fast API backend which is in Python, and that's an API framework we use. And then the front end is Vue.js and something called Quasar, which manages all of our nice UI experience. And that seems to work pretty well. Right, so let's have a little look here at the repo. So we have the LNbits org repo, and in there we've got links to LNbits Legend, LNbits Infinity. LNbits Legend was on something called Quart, Quart is a async version of Flask, if anyone's used Flask before. And it was very nice. It worked, it was nice to program with. But as he said, we had these scaling issues because we were some of the first people kind of running this software at scale, I think. So it became too much of an uphill struggle, and we just had to bite the bullet and then refactor it to use Fast API, which is a much more used framework, API framework written in Python, which has async native as well. It also has some other useful things, like something called pedantic, so it will like verify and check your data to make sure that your data is sound. So yeah, if we look at go into the legend, this is the one written Fast API with the Quasar Vue.js front end. So let's have a little look at the software, shall we? So this is what you get when you start up LNbits. You can run it on somebody else's server. So LNbits allows anyone to become a custodian of funds. So it allows anyone to become an open node or an LNpay and offer a custodian solution, which is great if you've got friends and family or local community who could all use the wallet. In fact, I was at Hackers Congress in Parallelipolis in Prague, and they were using LNbits for their backend, for their payments terminal. I've got one of the things we pay with here. And by using LNbits, just for that event, they were able to give all the participants in the event their own wallets, and they were paying for beers and coffees with their own wallets. And they said, look, after the event, we're going to kill the server, and then any funds which are left is just going to be a donation to Parallelipolis. So that was a real nice example of just spinning up a LNbits instance just for the use of a conference. So here we are. So when we start LNbits, in fact, if I go back, and we start LNbits, this is what you'll see when you install it on your server or you use somebody else's server. And you can very easily just create a wallet. And then when you create a wallet, that has its own API keys. And I can also, if I want to, say if I've got my ATM, I can easily create another wallet, and then that will also have its own API keys, okay? So now I can plug my ATM in and have a limited exposure to funds on top of my node. Lovely. And this just works like a normal wallet, and it's reactive, so you can put it in, your phone. You can save it actually as add it to your home screen, and it will work like an app. You can scan QR codes, scan payments, pay payments, all that sort of stuff. But what makes it really special, LNbits, and really enjoyable to work with and fun is the extension framework we have and the amount of extensions which we've now rolled out and built into it. So if you imagine you've got your Lightning node and you can send and receive payments, LNbits kind of adds almost like a WordPress of Lightning wallets, Lightning functionality. So obviously someone running a node, they might have lots of different uses they need it for. You might be a merchant, so they might need a point of sale, or they might need we've got a Jukebox extension, so they can have a jukebox in their bar or their cafe. Or it might be like a content creator. So we have something like a Streamer Copilot, which is where are we? Somewhere there. Yeah, there we are, Streamer Copilot. And what this does is composes a video feed with a QR code, and you can pay the QR code, and you can have events trigger little GIFs and stuff on the screen while you're doing your video content. So just like WordPress, and I mean, we all know WordPress is a piece of shit, but the fact that it has such a bountiful array of plugins makes it incredibly useful to extend it in any direction you need it to extend it in. And that's kind of how LNbits works. You start off with a bare bones LNbits install, and then you just extend it in any direction you want, okay? Currently, all the extensions are just packaged in with LNbits, but in the future, as we get more and more extensions, because they're kind of exponentially being developed by people, we will need some sort of a search library thing like you would expect to see in something like WordPress. And it's great if you've got a small project and you want to rapidly prototype something where you need a server, okay? So I used it for the LNURL POS tutorial workshop I was doing next door. I think most of you have seen it. It's the offline point of sale device which I created. And it needs a server to communicate to in order to collect an invoice, pay an invoice, all that sort of stuff. And that's what LNbits can provide through just its simple extension. So if we take a look at that, I can enable that extension and then open him up. Oh, whoops, daisy. Open him up. And then in here, if I'm setting up my Lightning point, my LNURL point of sale, I can give it a name. Say I've got loads of these things because I've got a supermarket. I can connect it to a wallet, so I connect it to that wallet because the other one is my ATM. And then I can pick a fiat currency because this thing uses fiat to make it easier for vendors and things to be able to denominate their prices. and then we can just create the LNUR POS. And this is very simple. Like I can, on this one in particular, I take the code I need from here, gives me a nice little code snippet, and that's the code I then use to flash the device. So this is just one extension which I made for myself, and now other people are starting to find useful. A good example of the benefit of being able to put out your work as free and open source is the Bleskomat. So we've got the Bleskomat workshops going on next door. If anyone who doesn't know, the Bleskomat is a offline ATM, so you can put coins in. It generates a LNUR withdrawal, which is like a faucet link. You can scan it, and then you can pull funds out of the ATM. What's cool about it is it's offline. It uses some crypto to make a hash to prove that to the server that the payment is legitimate. There's one of the people involved in LNbits, one of the people who gives a lot of support in our Telegram group and also has contributed is Oriel, and he's made a really nice little software version plugging into this of the Bleskomat, plugging into the same extension on his LNbits install. So you have like a meat bag ATM. So someone comes up to you and it's offline, so you can have it on an offline Android device. Say someone comes up to you, gives you some money, and then you can generate a LNUR withdrawal, and they can scan it and they can take the payment. So that's pretty exciting to see someone taking an extension made for a physical device and then using it for a software implementation as well. Spotify Jukebox, as I mentioned, Spotify has a fantastic API. So if you have a Spotify account, you can connect your LNbits to your Spotify account and allow it to access some playlists, and then also to be able to play those songs on a device. You can plug a phone into your speakers in your bar, and then you then get a front-end page where people can go and they can pick on a song, pay some sats, and then play the song, put it in the next queue of the Spotify thing. So if you're a cafe or a bar, for example, there's lots of interesting ways you can start streaming sats in. So yeah, let's have a little look at the point of sale extension we have on here, which is quite useful for a lot of vendors. This is a software point of sale, and this was written by one of our, Tal, one of our contributors now, who's heavily involved in LNbits. And what we like to do is we like to give an about and then also a link to the contributor's repo. So it's a nice way for developers to show off their talent, their skills, and because obviously people can install this LNbits. It's a good way of advertising their work. All extensions, well not all extensions, but pretty much most extensions come with API details. So you can build another solution which then can talk to the API of LNbits, and we have all that information just sort of natively within the extension itself to make it nice and easy to find. This is a very simple one as well, bar, connected to a wallet, connected to that same wallet there, denominated currency. So this is very similar to the LNUR POS one, in fact. Create TPOS, and then when I click on this, you get a shareable point of sale. This works on your phone really nicely. I can click on this QR code here, and then if someone scans that QR code with a normal QR code scanner, they can just open that up in their phone, start accepting Bitcoin payments. It's completely air-gapped from the wallet, so you can't get any information from the wallet. And again, it's dominated in fiat, so it makes it really easy for your bar person, your people working in your cafe or your bar to accept Bitcoin. And they can just run it on their phones. If anyone wants to scan that and then just get it up on their phone, they'll be able to see that it's just, works quite nicely as a point of sale. Let's have a look at some other extensions, so shall we? It's quite nice because I've got a good lump of time here so I can flick through some of these extensions. Split payments. Split payments is really interesting. So FiatJaff with Crypto Graffiti, they made, Crypto Graffiti did a DJ set at the Fed, the old Fed in San Francisco, and he wanted the ability for people to tip him. And then when he gets tipped, because we use something called LNUR Pay, they're able to get a receipt, and in that receipt they can get a link to the song which he's playing if they've tipped enough. The innovative thing on top of this is this idea of splitting a payment. So your producer has a wallet, the people who produce the song has the wallet, and the DJ has a wallet as well. And then when the payment comes in, it gets split, 20% to Crypto Graffiti, and then 80% to the music producer. And a lot of people in the LNbits Telegram, we all started getting excited about this, and we're like, oh, cool, like, imagine the implications. You could have a little startup venture, some friends selling coffee on the street. At the point of sale, the payment can be split into the different wallets, and everybody can have their percentage. And then what you can do is you can tree it together. So you could have a payment split, go into a wallet, and then that could split again. So you could do it even for bigger production. In a future utopian, Bitcoin-centric world, perhaps Apple has this kind of payment system on their back end, and then the guy in the factory is looking at his phone, he sees his wages pouring in, and it's from sales of the actual devices further down the line. So we got excited about that and all its potential use cases. So it's quite cool. We've also got something called Offline Shop. This is great for, say, a street vendor in El Salvador, and they haven't got their Wi-Fi, their internet might be intermittent, and they don't want to carry their phone around with them. So what they can do is add an item to it. So what should we call this? Let's call it anything, shall we? A brief description. And then we can select an image. All right, what can we select? Well, these are just QR codes, but you can select any image, but I'll select a QR code for now. Item price, 10 Satoshis, and then sats, add item. Okay, now that's been added. We can print all these QR codes out. So you can print that QR code out. Somebody can pay that street vendor, okay? And when the payment clears, because we need to verify that the payment has happened, let's go back, the vendor has a word list. And every time a payment is made, as a receipt, the person paying gets the next word on the word list. So the person can just say, oh, rabbit. And then the vendor knows that, okay, that payment, came after Quetzal. So every time a payment is made, the receipt is the next word on the word list. So that's pretty exciting for having an offline payment solution. In fact, my LNURL POS project is kind of based off that same idea, but instead of a word, you get a pin. So and you don't have to keep that word list, and you can then scale it to like a supermarket or something, which is pretty exciting. Subdomains, if you've got a domain which you like, then you can people can rent subdomains off you for Satoshis just for a day or 2 days, which is quite nice for developers. A lot of our functionality which we have in LNbits is thanks to this thing called LNURL. Can I have a hands up who's heard of LNURL, who understands what LNURL is? And you can be honest, it's fine if you don't. Okay, so we're talking like a third of the room. So I'll explain it a little bit. Quite early on in Lightning, there's some design limitations to Lightning payments currently. In order for me to receive a payment from you, I need to generate an invoice, you pay that invoice, then I get the sats. So when I was making my candy machine, I have to have a screen, and then someone pays it. It senses that you can see that the payment has been made, and then refreshes and makes a new invoice for the candy. So I thought what would make sense is if we have a static QR code, obviously, which you can just scan, and then it will do a request to a server and get back an invoice, and then your wallet, you can say, do you want to pay this invoice? Yes, no, and then you pay the invoice. But for the user, they're just scanning a static QR code pay, scan a static QR code pay, and the thing starts spitting out sweets. This is a concept which a lot of us were thinking about kind of in Lightning, and then Anton from BLW and a couple of others, Hampus and Fiatjaf, they got together and they made this beautiful protocol. And it has all these extra features which you should all be very excited about. One of them being, LNURL withdraw. So you have a QR code, you can scan and pull funds out of the QR code. What happens is, I scan it with my wallet, it does a request to a server. The LNURL itself is just a URL. It does a request to the server. The server then says, send me an invoice for 100 Satoshis. Your wallet then sends an invoice for 100 Satoshis. The server pays it, so the user then gets 100 Satoshis. The UX experience for the actual user is scanning a QR code, and then boom, I get some Satoshis in my wallet, which is lovely. Something which I think would be very cool would be maybe using that for something like repeat payments, like a subscription service. If you imagine like Netflix, you could make an LNURL withdraw, the actual, not as a QR code, just as the actual LNURL withdraw itself, give it to Netflix, and it gives them the ability to pull out $5 a month until the LNURL withdraw doesn't work or whatever, or until you destroy the LNURL withdraw, and that's your subscription. So you can do like a direct debit. It's the permission to be able to pull funds from your wallet. Now, because LNURL sits on top of, needs a server to run, an LNURL server, LNbits is really the only easy way to have a node and then start creating and minting these little LNURLs and using them in interesting, innovative applications, which makes it very, very useful. Because thankfully as well, we got Fiatjaf working on the project, and he's obviously one of the core protocol developers of the LNURL protocol, which is wonderful. So what else have we got here? Oh, that's that there. Okay, so if anyone's interested in LNURL, I urge you to go to their repo and check it out. And there's some information about all the wallets which support LNURL, withdraw and pay, and then also auth, which is an authentication LNURL, and the channels, so you can like make channels using LNURL as well, which is great. Interestingly, like Bitcoin Beach Wallet, I don't think they support LNURL yet. And I think Strike as well, they've got some weird thing going on with LNURL, even though I know one or two of the developers are really, really into LNURL itself. But most Lightning wallets now support LNURL. What's great about that protocol is it's a user-driven protocol. So you think about protocol development, it comes from the top down, and then we were like, well, we love Lightning, we love these microtransactions, but actually making payments kind of sucks, and we want all this other functionality. Let's, as a community, come together and build this protocol. And I think that's why it's had such traction, is because it's built by, by the users. And they've done the legwork, they've gone to all the Lightning wallets, they've put in PRs to be able to make all this stuff supported, which is really cool. So yeah, please do check that out. Here's a little example. I'm going to go off track a little bit because obviously I'm talking about LNbits, but it's important that you kind of understand what you can do with LNURL. And I got a little example here. So this is we do like a panel show on World Crypto Network every week talking about Bitcoin. And yeah, we all happen to have beards and be white dudes as well. So it's pretty depressing. But here's an example here. So in the video, I had an LNURL pay for Smoke and Slap. So that's connected because I like hardware devices. So in my little hacker den, I've got a Smoke machine set up, and then I've got this sort of Slappy machine I rigged together out of a windscreen, motor, and a plastic fly swatter. And then if people don't like what I'm saying, they can pay and either slap me or blow smoke in my face. And slapbacks, because the money's going into a wallet through the LNURL pay, the middle one is LNURL withdraw, and slapbacks is like a faucet, so people can actually pull funds out of the screen as well. So it's a very interactive video stream. So if we play it, we should be able to see. Sadly, I haven't got sound, but Martin's talking here, and then you'll see someone pays, and then I get the crap kicked out of me there. It's pretty good fun. And now actually, the funny part of this was, in my little hacker den, it's like a shared space with my partner, and it's just got all my crap around it, and she doesn't pay attention to the Bitcoin stuff. And she went up there to work, and she's just used to seeing stuff lying around. And she's working on the computer, and somebody's watching the YouTube video the next day, and I suppose they thought, oh, I wonder if it still works, and they paid some sats, and then she just got slapped, and I got this text message from her saying, like, what the fuck? I've just been slapped while sitting at the computer by your weird gizmos. So that was quite cool, quite interesting. Infinity, right, so, yeah, fantastic. LNbits itself, if I pause that for a second, if we have a little look at some of the code, and we take a look at the extensions, because core is managed by the core developers, and we kind of try and iron out all the bugs and stuff. I will say LNbits is beta, and we're still not happy to take it out of beta, and we're not going to do it for a little while. But hopefully the next month or so, it'll be like stable enough that we can kind of bring it out of beta. People still use it, just use it with caution and be aware, that it is beta. But the extensions themselves are just their own self-contained folders, and they've all pretty much got the same file structure. We have like a views API, so this is where our API calls are. So you can call those APIs, you can do your get and post requests to the APIs, and you delete and whatever else. And then the views.py, they're the actual pages which you're going to, which you can do some, computation before, and then have, that's WebSockets down there, they shouldn't really be there, but there we are. And they have some computation before, and then it renders a front-end template with the data in. So our templates are here, and then we have our template folder here, and we've got, just some simple templates. And then CRUD, that communicates to the database. When you first install LNbits, it will, depending on which database you choose to use, it will quickly build all the database files. Most people use SQLite, so the database files themselves are just like text files, which is nice for, like, say, something like the Raspberry Blitz, because you can put those on a hard drive. A better solution is using something like Postgres or CockroachDB, which we have instructions for as well, because they're async. So if you're using SQLite, you might find that if multiple people are accessing that database at the same time, then it can kind of stall up, which can be a bit of a pain. And here we have there, because we've got LNURL in there, we've got some code for LNURL. And that's one extension. And you can see that the other extension here has basically got the same files. So if I want to make an extension, I think what the extension I want to make is most like, and then I just copy and paste that, do a word change, add some extra functionality, move some things around, and then you have your extension. But there is some repetition of work, which we want to try and avoid. Like, we want a rapid prototype quickly. So to make an extension now, it takes me about a day or two, and then a few days of using and debugging, and then some feedback and stuff, and then, you built the extension. So it takes a little bit of time. This is a very reasonable amount of time, but it takes a little bit of time. So the concept behind Infinity is, This is LNbits rewritten in Go, completely from the ground up. And in Infinity, instead of having that, we have these Lua files, which are like configuration files. So here's LNbits running in Go, which is async native and kind of handle async stuff a little bit better than the Python can. But instead of having extensions, folders of code, we just have a little plugin module thing here. I click on that, and it wants me to add an app URL. So what's the app URL? The app URL is a Lua file, and then, because basically all extensions are the same. You open an extension, there's a form, you fill out a form, it fills in a table, the data goes into the database, and then you have a front-end page like that point of sale thing we saw before. So this works. You have a Lua file, which is basically like a configuration file. So which one's this now? This is the paywall extension. So you can paywall content and paywall a link, so people have to pay to go to a link. We actually use this as our tip jar in the LNbits Telegram. And if we have a look at the legacy, the legend version of LNbits, which is written in Python, then we'll see, where are we? Paywall, here we go. Then we see we've got all these python.py files, and it's quite heavy on the old code, whereas with our Lua file, it's nice and clean. It's basically just a config of models and what we want in our form and that sort of stuff, and then some computation stuff as well. And then we have a front-end page for the paywall as well. Now, this is extremely new. It's only been out for a couple of weeks, so it's really like proof of concept, put it out there. I emphasize, if you go on our LNbits.com website, then it's the Infinity demo server. So it's a demo, just play with it, but it probably won't work as you want it to work, and we need to kind of keep building on it. But it's very exciting because, I can take this Lua file here, which could be held somewhere else. It doesn't even need to be on my computer. And then I can add the URL to it, to LNbits. I can click on this little thing here, and then there we are. Boom. LNbits just builds the extension. And it builds the extension an admin page, and the ability to be able to fill out your form and all that stuff. So, you can put in a URL. It might complain that I haven't done HTTPS, but let's see. And how many Satoshis you want it for. And there we are, it fills out our table. Currently, it's not linking, so if I click on it, it won't open the front page, but that's literally how cutting edge this is. But it's extremely exciting. We can now go from 1 or 2 days to making and prototyping an extension to like 30 minutes. So that's great. Like I could be talking to someone out there, having a cup of coffee, and they say, oh, I'd like an extension to do this. And after a little bit of practice, I could go on my LNbits install and go, and then we could have an extension doing something, some craziness. So that's extremely exciting. And so this is pretty much LNbits. Completely free and open source, always will be. We do have it running on LNbits.com, so you can go and check it out. You can play with the demos. Don't commit too much funds on there. We say this repeatedly because people put too much funds on there. We mess about with our servers. That's where we experiment with the server. It's not production yet. One day it will be production. You'll be able to just use it on LNbits.com. And we might have some fancy schmancy way of like not being liquidity holders because we don't want to be a bank, right? But the best way for you to run LNbits is run it yourself, get a VPS, spin it up. I've got some tutorials for that. So if you go to YouTube, and if you go to YouTube and if you search for LNbits, you'll be able to find a whole bunch of tutorials on how to set up LNbits. So here, there's a 25-minute video tutorial I did where you set up a VPS, C Lightning, and Sparko, give it an SSL certificate and a URL, all in 25 minutes. And that's a Lightning node running on a VPS. And we kind of got some nice little hacks, so we don't need the full block data. So it's like a light node. You can use it for like a business solution or something. But obviously it's not, a full Bitcoin node. It streams block data from like a range of a couple of dozen sources using a C Lightning plugin. So that's pretty sweet. That's what we run on LNbits.com. So it works pretty well. And we've also got a bunch of other tutorials on there, which are pretty fun to kind of look through. It's relatively easy to install. You can put on a VPS. For a lot of the node implementations, or the node management software, such as the Umbrel, the Raspberry Blitz, MyNode, and I'm forgetting the others, and I really apologize for that. But they all have like one-click install solutions for LNbits. So you can just do a one-click install, and then boom, go to a port, and then you have your LNbits there, point a domain at it, What's quite nice is a lot of these nodes are going Tor, so you instantly get a .onion address and you can start doing stuff with LNbits. A lot of the functionality works. As I said, we recently shifted the whole thing from this Quart backend framework to Fast API. So the version which is running on the server is the Fast API version. So there are a few extensions which might not work entirely as you want them to work, but most of them pretty much work. We just need to go through and maybe iron out a few bugs on one or two of them. This SatsDice one is nice, and I'll put some of these up around the venue, see if we can turn this hotel into a casino. So the way SatsDice works is you can connect it to a wallet, right, and then give it a title, no imagination, and then set a minimum bet, maximum bet, and then a multiplier, so how much people's funds will be multiplied if they pay. So if we go 1.5, and then a sneaky little haircut for the bank, because well, that's what the casinos do. And in fact, I might call it that, to be honest. It's a bit of a better title, isn't it? And then this will create, here we go, a SatsDice. So, yeah, here's one of those little bugs I was talking about. I need to refresh to get that there. Okay, so this is an LNURL pay. When you pay that QR code, so it's a static QR code, so you can print this out, put it in a tube station, okay? And then somebody scans it with a Lightning wallet, makes a payment. If they win, they get a receipt back, and it's an LNURL withdrawal, so it's a FOSS that they can pull the funds from. Although, if they lose, they don't get that. They get a little sad face. So this is pretty fun. I'll print some of these out. I'll stick them around the hotel after this. Again, though, another fun way for if you've got a cafe and you've got the point of sale, going to your LNbits install, you've got the Jukebox set up, and then you stick one of these in the urinal, and then when dudes are at the urinal, they get their phones out and they do a little bit of betting. So kind of a fun way to stream in some extra sats. Now, going back to our split payments extension, because I just realized I didn't talk about something which I'm personally very, very excited about. I was speaking to someone who works in kind of the business world. They had this great idea of a fee referral system. So if you're running, imagine a kid running a LNbits install in San Salvador, and they're offering, people can use them as a custodian to accept and send Bitcoin, and then they say, look, okay, I'm going to charge you a 2% fee for every transaction for this service, which you can do in the LNbits backend. You can set a fee. However, here's a referral link. If you onboard one of your friends, they'll get a cut of that fee. And then, if they onboard someone, they'll get a little bit of the fee, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then pretty soon, the cafe owner who gave the LNbits installed the referral link to the bar owner, to the hairdresser, to the pharmacist, whatever, the person who's kind of at the top of that fee referral viral network, I don't know what you call it, pyramid scheme, the person at the very top, they're looking at their LNbits wallet, and they're just having sats streaming in for just onboarding. So I'm extremely excited about this idea of using split payments to organize some sort of fee referral system into LNbits, and I think it's a great way to, for people just to earn a little bit of sats, get those sats streaming in, because you don't have to have chunk payments anymore. We can have very small payments, can't we? It's great to see people integrating LNbits. So if you go to, like the Blesco map, for example, if there is an awesome LNbits, I don't know if I can Google it. Let's see if we can Google it. Hopefully I can. Yeah, here we go. Oh no. No. Is it on maybe it's on the website, let me check. Oh, I think it's in the repo, actually. I'll go and look in the repo. And in there's some examples of how people have integrated LNbits into, integrated LNbits into their projects, which is really nice. So we've got the Blesco mat, we've got all these different extensions, and then the projects which use it here, so we've got a bunch of projects which are using LNbits to their back end. And this is just the people who've reached out to us. We don't know how many people have got LNbits as part of their stack for their product or their project or whatever they seem to be working on. There is a Woocommerce extension, Woocommerce, a plugin for Woocommerce, so you can accept. So just as when you go to McDonald's here, and you see the QR code that's provided by OpenNode. OpenNode have a Woocommerce plugin which they offer. LNbits also has a Woocommerce plugin it offers. So if you're running LNbits, you can receive payments for goods on your shop, and then it will go into your LNbits account. So that's pretty sweet. What else have we got? Pay to read more. This is pretty cool. I still think it needs a little bit of work, but basically this is a WordPress plugin where, does anyone know Yols? Yours was like a nice example of a Lightning payments for content. So you'd hit the Financial Times, you hit a paywall, and then you just pay some sats, you get the rest of the article. Well, in WordPress, you've got the little read more link. So this replaces the read more link with pay to read more. Click on it, gives you an invoice, you pay it, and then it reveals the rest of the content. So we have people building software solutions which are integrated into LNbits. And part of the reason for that is if they did a pay to read more just natively onto LND or C Lightning, it's like, well, you have to have C Lightning or LND running. Whereas if you've got any of those nodes running, you can just put LNbits on top of it, and then you've got that functionality there straight away, and you can plug it into your WordPress install. So check out the website, check out the repo. If you want to join us on the Telegram group, it's LNbits in Telegram. It's a really nice community, really friendly. There's lots of great people in there giving support. The project has grown really nicely. Lots of developers piling onto it. Lots of services and businesses who are using LNbits and stuff. So it's quite an exciting sort of field to be in. What's nice and what's exciting is it came from real world use, and that's why I'm psyched for the El Salvador stuff, because there's all these big companies, implementing Lightning payments, and we're getting all this real world use. So we get all this great feedback, and we can build better, services and products for an open source projects. So very excited about it.
Does anyone have any questions for Ben? Going once, twice.
3 times a lady.
Okay, I am not singing. All right, if there are no questions, thanks very much, Ben.
Thank you. Make sure as well, keep your eye out for when it comes out of beta, because that'll be really exciting. And then also check out that Go implementation. It's very neat, tidy, and interesting, and well worth looking at as it progresses, because it'll progress quite quickly, I imagine, because it's very, very useful. So keep checking back in on the repo. Thank you.